So a while back, an 88 Jeep YJ followed us home, and it's been sitting here and there. We've done a little bit of work to it, just to say we were doing something to it, but we really haven't done anything major. When we got it, it was pretty nice shape for what it is. The body tub itself is actually really nice, but there's basically no interior in it when we got it, which is okay. I mean, it was real easy to see what we had as far as the tub goes, so that was nice. But believe it or not, YJ parts aren't quite as easy to come by in my neck of the woods as I thought they might be. So that might be a little bit of an issue. But you know what? Even if we have to kind of home build some panels, we can do that too. So I'm not really too concerned about that. Anyway, what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna throw a battery in this thing. Bought it, was told that it would run, but we've never heard it run. So that's gonna be our number one. We're gonna throw a battery in here, test out some electrical stuff, but the big thing is we want to hear this thing run. We want to see it drive down the road, and then it's going to be a whole lot easier to get involved in the project, and real excited about making this happen. So a couple of things I got to do right quick before we get too excited about getting this thing started is I got to loop my tranny cooler lines so I don't pump out all the tranny fluid all over the floor, if there is any. Hopefully there is. Also, I'm gonna have to put a radiator in it and get my water pump running somehow so that I can ideally I'd like to get it, just drive it around the block, make sure everything's gonna work. I know the brakes work. We figured that out when we were driving it back, or towing it back here behind the truck. So yeah, looking forward to getting this thing lit off. Now, the first thing we're going to do, just to make this easier, is we're going to, pop that nasty old hood off in just a second. But one beautiful thing about the old Jeep life, just pop them doors off like nobody's business, and then make it easy for hopping in and out and doing checks and starting things up and whatnot. One thing I can't stress enough when a guy's taking something like this apart, just do your future self a favor. Throw the fasteners in a cheap dollar store plastic bag and keep that stuff all together. Big thing, write on it what it is. You think you'll remember, but you ain't gonna remember. So just bag it and tag it. Better keep this hood nice and close to where we're working, because definitely some of that is going to become patch panels for the rest of the Jeep tub. Now this little shot is more or less just for me, so that I can look back on it and go through it in slow motion and remember where all this crap goes. Now this will not be the first time you hear me say this, but for the first time, the moment of truth, will it turn over? Oh, like butter. I knew that guy wouldn't screw us over on this. Just kidding, I was kind of scared. It turns over real easy. I guess I got a pretty big bar on here. Well, it's got to be worthwhile whirling it over with the starter, doesn't it? Let's see how that works. So a couple of things I got to do right quick before we get too excited about getting this thing started is I got to loop my tranny cooler lines so I don't pump out all the tranny fluid all over the floor, if there is any. Hopefully there is. Also, I'm going to have to put a radiator in it and get my water pump running somehow so that I can, ideally I'd like to get it, just drive it around the block, make sure everything's going to work. I know the brakes work. We figured that out when we were driving it back, or towing it back here behind the truck. So yeah, looking forward to getting this thing lit off. Well, thanks to Tim from 318 Well Run. He just put out a real good video about starting a vehicle that's been sitting for a long time. I honestly have no idea how long this thing's been since it started. So I'm gonna follow a couple of ideas that he had, and that's gonna help me make sure we don't make a mess of this engine when we're just trying to get it running and saved. Another thing I should do, I suppose, is I should check and see if there's any oil in this rig. Ooh, actually looks pretty good. Not clean enough to look like maybe it was just changed, but clean enough to maybe it was taken care of. I'm not too scared about starting it with that oil in there because, yeah, because that looks pretty decent. Now, it's painfully obvious to me that I don't need to worry about trying to check the antifreeze, because if there's any in there at all, it's just going to pump out all over the place due to a lack of radiator and radiator hoses and whatnot like that. Well, we got oil. We got no antifreeze. I guess I maybe should ought to check and see if there's anything on that transmission dipstick. Now, you're seeing all these things just as I'm seeing them. So, okay. Shows a little over full, which is maybe nerve-wracking. Smells like tranny fluid. Doesn't smell burnt or nothing. Ugh. Tastes like tranny fluid. That reminds me why I don't do that. I think that should be good enough. We should be able to start it looking like that. Now, let's see. We put my nice new Interstate battery in there. The last couple batteries I bought, I've got from Interstate, and for no other reason that I can get them cheap through the shop my wife works for. But I gotta say, these things they're real good compared to a lot of the junk that I've bought lately. So here we go. Got the negative on, just somewhat loose. Let's take the positive, and let's just see if we get any arky sparky. No, we got no arky sparky. Let's put these, oh, there's a little bit of a snap there. Now, the way I sees it, I'm just going to put these on nice and light and loose, because if the proverbial poop hits the fan and we start smelling electrical smoke or something like that, I got to be able to get those things off there in a quick hurry. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the key turned on, and I'm going to see if I can hear any action back at the fuel pump, because that's one thing I don't super love electric in-tank fuel pumps, just from a reliability standpoint. I know the newer ones are better, but these first few years of fuel injection, they super stink. So I really am hoping this thing's gonna have an operable fuel pump. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna listen for this fuel pump. When I tell you to turn it on, like I said, just turn the key forward like I said.
Okie dokie.
Okay, go ahead. Off. Again. Well, I don't hear nothing.
Turn it off?
Yeah. I guess it's worthwhile sticking a gallon or so of gas in there and seeing if it pumps. It'll suck if I do that, and then we have to pull the tank down because whatever. We'll give her a try. So I'm not convinced that I've got a reliable supply of fuel from the tank to the throttle body, but you know what? Whatever. I'm gonna try and start it, spray a little bit of schmutz down the throttle body, and see if it lights and runs. At least I don't know if I've got ignition and whatnot like that. So let's give her a whirl. I'm excited. I think it's gonna run. I think it's gonna run off the tank. I think it's gonna be good, but you know how that goes. Okay. See if the pump's gonna pump just till the red light comes on. Okay, spin it over. Well, that was easy. Sounded like shit, but it runs.
It does?
You know, the funny thing is, I never even thought to look what was under this thing for exhaust. Well, I was so danged excited that it ran. I never even thought to see if it would run continuously, like off of the fuel pump. So let's give that another go.
Alright, ready for a loud ground noise.
Okay, let's try that again, girl.
All the way?
Yep. Whoop. Okay, try it. Yeah, see, it's just running off of what I sprayed in the carburetor in the throttle body. So we must not have fuel coming up here. You know what? I don't even care. The fact that it runs, I'm ecstatic. Well, I'm freaking excited. I've never really done something like this. The last time I drug an old vehicle out that'd been sitting for a long time, I didn't even really try to get it running. I just tore the thing apart instead, which was kind of stupid. So I'm really excited that this is as close as it is. I know the engine runs. I know I've got a fuel problem, which chances are it's that pump. When M turned the key, I didn't hear anything. And I tried to pretend that I heard something, but I didn't. I'm sure I didn't. So anyway, that's going to be kind of my next deal, is mess around and try and get actual fuel pressure up there. Well, we know the Jeep will run. So now we just got to get it to stay running. Obviously, we had no fuel coming up to the fuel system. I pull up tank, check the pump. Probably gonna end up having to replace the pump, clean out the lines, get all that old filthy oil or gasoline out of there, and we'll go from there. Now I pulled the fuel tank, which wasn't a big deal, but it was a bit of a pain in the butt. The only complaint I really had about the whole thing is there's 4 bolts that go here, 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 and here. And they go up in behind the kind of the bumper there. And they're basically like a carriage bolt. 2 of them came off like a Joe Dam. 2 of them spun and we had to cut them off, which was a bit of a pain in the butt because there's just not a whole lot of room to get in there with your cutting tools to cut those things off. There's also 3 bolts at the back that are here, here, and here. Basically what it is, this is your skid plate, and that holds the tank up. So you drop the skid plate and the tank comes with it. But these ones are actually no problem. They stuck too, but fortunately I was able to get a 1/2-inch wrench on the top side of them to back it up and just use a big old 1/2-inch impact and rattle them suckers off like nobody's business. Heck of a lot nicer than the backside. Anyway, got that done, dropped it down. Realistically, the only thing is there's 2 hoses to go to the fuel fill, 2 hoses to go to the sending unit, the fuel supply and return, and the 1 wiring connection with 3 wires. And it actually drops out of there fairly easily. I have heard that this side here, you can have trouble with it interfering with the muffler. But anybody that's watched any of the stuff on this Jeep before knows that the whole exhaust's been cut off of this thing. So that was no problem for us. Anyway, I'll share with you what I find with this here pump. I guess also something else worthy of note, there's 2 vents. There's one here and there's one over here, and they both, the vent lines come this way across the same way with it, all the fuel lines and everything come. So that's no big deal. When the tank falls down, these are real easy to just pull off, and that's just one more thing you got to disconnect when you're dropping the tank. So I pulled the pump out. I pulled the wiring off, and you can see there's just the two spade connectors in there. I used my good old meter from the days when I used to work, and I metered out that motor, and she's an open circuit. So I pretty much guarantee you that there's something's broke off or burnt off inside that pump, and that's going to be the main reason why we weren't able to stay running once we got it running. We just had no fuel coming. But anyway, while I'm in here, I'm going to take a look at the entire fuel system. I'm going to check out the hoses, check out the filter, all that kind of business. Now, one thing I'm excited to see, the tank looks pretty dang clean. So I don't have to worry about spending a whole bunch of time. There's a little bit of crap on the bottom, but it's not anything that I'm going to worry about. So yeah, really happy with that. Get that old crappy varnish smelling gas out of there and we should be good to go. So let's give this a go. Don't tell my probation officer you saw me doing this or I'll be in trouble. Perfect. There we go. Okay, so now somebody's learning how to change a fuel pump. Pretty simple, just a couple of hose clamps and off it comes. I already had it pulled apart before. Just pull that one bolt off so she'll slide down out of the way and we should be good to go. So this would be another good reason that I replaced the pump and the strainer, because yeah, that ain't straining much but only the big stuffs, like maybe bottle caps and lifters and whatnot that might be in there. So I decided to pull the tank out from inside the skid plate. And to do that, you've got to remove the two straps that hold it in there. Well, no surprise, I broke both the bolts on the straps. So you can buy new straps, but why would you? I'll show you how I fixed mine. So you see, I'm just trying to grind down without getting into the strap. It's obviously just spot welded on there, but I'm just going to try and carefully grind through there and without taking away any of the strap material, but getting rid of that welded on thing that used to attach the bolt. So that's both of them just ground down and ready to just accept a little piece of ready rod, and I'll just weld that on there like a Joe damn. So there you go. I just cut the heads off a couple 5/16 bolts and welded them on there, and that should hold far better than it needs to. Should be all right. There, you'd never know that wasn't factory built. Looks good to me. So I think what I'm going to do is going to pop off the return line and the fuel line. I can't believe how stiff these are. They're like a real hard plastic. It's not like they're going to break or nothing. I'm sure that's the way they're supposed to be. But sure as hell not what I expected, I'll tell you that much. So what I think, from the back, I'll try and blow through these out to the front and try and make sure everything's clear through there. Not sure if I'll be able to blow through the filter or not. I guess we'll see. So a little change of plan. I'm gonna blow it from the front to the back. Makes a little more sense. Start out with this one, which is I believe the return line. Here we go. Anything coming out back there?
Yeah, a lot here on me. Like a lot.
Is this still coming out?
No.
Anything coming out back there?
Yeah, a lot came out on me. Like a lot.
So after all that, I soaked my helper at the back with ugly old stale gas, and the compressor started, but now we're just going to blow out the other one. You ready?
Yeah.
Lots coming out?
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah.
Is it still coming out?
I don't even know. Kind of, yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Lots coming out?
Yeah.
Still?
Yeah.
Is it still coming out?
I don't even know.
So there's definitely some resistance through the filter. Just you could feel a little bit of pressure building up when I was back blowing it. So I'm better replace the filter just because that's probably the smart thing to do. Glad that the lines are clear. Had a look in the bucket afterwards and doesn't look like much of anything for schmutz or gross stuff blew out. So I'm sure everything's going to be okay. Let's just throw this system all back together with some new pump, new filter, and then we'll get after cleaning out the fuel rail and the injectors and whatnot at that end. And this is just a little reminder for me as to how all this crap goes, so that I have a hope in hell of getting it back together right once I peel it apart. Easy, no problem. Okay, so now we got a fuel rail and injectors. Let's just pull those injectors off of there and see what we can do about maybe getting those little things cleaned inside. So now I got that that rail cleaned up. I just blew it all out with some brake clean, just like every other freaking thing that I clean around here. But now I'm gonna figure out a way to clean up these injectors. Now I've been looking on the good old YouTube machine, and what it looks like a guy can do is drop them in the ultrasonic cleaner, give them a good clean in there, and then what I'll maybe try and do is fashion some kind of a way to energize them and blow through them with some brake clean or something from the inside. See what we can figure out here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put these things in the ultrasonic magic machine. Now I just put some fuel system cleaner. Hopefully this doesn't explode. I guess if you never see this video, you know that it exploded and I died. But anyway, I put some of that fuel system cleaner in there. I'm going to set that beaker in the ultrasonic machine and fill around it with water. That's the way apparently that you can use these things, so that you don't have to fill the whole thing up with cleaning fluid, but the water actually transmits the ultrasonic magic into the little thing that you're cleaning. Well, I'm glad that thing works as good as it does, because it's annoying as shit. I'm going to just leave it in there for half an hour or whatever and see what comes out. So after 30 minutes in that sauce, these things look good. Obviously they don't look like brand new, but they're nice and clean. And let's see about maybe cleaning out the innards of them. Now I learned this just watching a YouTube video, and it works slicker than boiled owl shit. But what that is, that's just a Schrader valve. That's a tire valve stem. And like you can see, it just pops on the end of that, like nobody's business. That's nice and soft rubber, so it goes on there really well. Now all I got to do now, I just pulled the valve core out of there, and I took and I made this. I drilled a hole in the end of the valve stem cap, just the right size for the squirter thing out of a can of brake clean, and glued it in there with a little bit of super whiz bang glue, and that should work really well to spray some stuff through here. Just spin it on like that. Now we're ready to put some pressure through there. So now I got this all set up with my can of cleaner. I got a 6-volt power supply. It actually goes like 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5, all the way up to 12. I just started creeping up until I got the lowest voltage that would actually open the solenoid. So I'm at 6 volts on this one. And I'll just show you, see what this is going to do. Just open a solenoid. Oh, she blew off. Obviously, it's holding pretty good on the valve cap anyway. If it blows that off. So now I got 4 nice and cleaned out, ready to use injectors that I can throw back in this rig. Confident that I should be able to get, it looked like a real nice spray pattern coming out of it and everything like that. So when we go to fire this thing up, I'm damn sure that my injectors should all be good. So we got a new fuel filter. We blew out the lines, cleaned out the tank, put a new fuel pump in it. What else did we do? Cleaned out the injectors, got to dump them back in. This thing's getting close to being able to fire and run. Maybe we'll go do something stupid like cut some donuts in the snow with some bald tires or something like that. Sounds like fun. So I got the wrong fan shroud with the wrong fan. Think I can make something out of it? Let's give it a try. Now if you think you've seen some cheesy redneck stupid crap to this point, hold your horses. This is gonna get interesting. I think I got this figured out how I'm gonna make this happen. It's probably not gonna be permanent, but it'll get me along to make this thing run and drive just for a little bit, just to prove out the powertrain, make sure everything's good. Now this is the stock fan shroud for my 4-cylinder Jeep, and an old piece of crap plastic electric fan that I've had kicking around since probably definitely before any of my kids were born. So I'm going to just try and put the two together. If it works out good, who knows, this might be permanent, because it should pull air like a dam to cool a little 4-cylinder. But you know what, even if it only works temporary, my goal will be not to screw up this minty fan shroud in case I do have to put something a little less stupid in here. But big thing, I gotta fill in a little bit of gap in and around the edges of it with something, and fasten that fan in there a little bit more permanent than hopes and dreams. So now, I'm not a big one on quotes, but a quote that I really like from kind of more modern popular culture and YouTubeness: if it works, is it really that stupid of an idea? That's heater hose screwed around to the edge of that. Of course, I got to throw a couple more screws in there to make sure it holds good, but I think that's just going to be the clear cat's ass. So now I have an electric fan, fits nice and snug in there, and I bet she's gonna pull air through that little radiator just like skin hell. Well, there's the installation as it sits in the vehicle. Temporary like everything else, because we're just gonna get this thing running and tear it all apart again. But let's see what kind of might happen. No fuse, so if If I die, you'll never see this, but here she goes. Well, that was not as amazing as I was expecting it to be, but you know what? It's going to be just fine for what we're doing, at least right now. And keep this thing cool enough to get us around the block and maybe show off a little bit and make sure that tranny and everything works out. So off camera, I actually attached the wires to the battery post with a couple of vice grips and let it run for a couple minutes. It pulls decent amount of air. It actually leaks a whole ton right around where the rad bolts to the shroud. But you know what? Whatever. It's not that big of a deal. If it comes into use more than just a few minutes, I'll look at sealing that off. But for now, I'm certainly not concerned about it. It's just more of a temporary gig. But I'm really actually happy how it turned out and how sturdy it is. It's just the hose is screwed to the fan housing, and then the hose is screwed to the fan shroud. So if there was any amount of vibration, which there probably really wouldn't be in a plastic shroud anyway, but if there was, it would be taken up by the hose. And I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Now, the best thing about the whole installation for me, you know how much it cost me? It cost me nothing, because I just used crap I had around the house, around the garage. And yeah, maybe I bought it at some point, but I bought it for something else and I spent that money a long time ago. So this was free, and free's my favorite color. Well, now that I got a cooling system such that it is, I guess I better quit putting off installing that gas tank so that I can maybe get this thing on the road. Okay, new fuel pump, new fuel filter, blew out all the lines, cleaned the injectors. Absolutely no reason this thing shouldn't start and run. I just hooked up the battery and I heard the fuel pump cycle, so let's give her a whirl. Fuel leak at the regulator, but other than that, success. That's awesome. Well, she's back in the ground, got the drive shafts hooked up. All I got to do is wait for this stupid fuel pressure regulator to come in, and we're ready to go for a rip here. We got 2 seats bolted to the floor. We're ready to go. So a whole week or 2 later, this gets replaced. That's the fuel pressure regulator, and it obviously was stuck, and when the pump deadheaded and the pump just kept going, it must have just blown the O-rings out of there, and it was just a geyser of gasoline out of there. Underhood fire is just definitely not what anybody wants, especially when your daughter's driving the vehicle that you just fixed up. So that's good. Next thing, let's just see whether we got an operating transmission. Okay, let's see what happens.
Transmission goes that far forward and back anyway. That ain't worth a try. Nothing is.
I guess before we go too far, I better see where that little leakage is coming from. I just looped my tranny cooler lines earlier, so chances are that's where it's from. But I don't need that all leaking out. And I got a interesting fuel smell starting to take place in the shop here, so I better get a couple things sorted out before I take off too far and drive this thing as a fireball down the back alley. So let's take a poll. What's gonna leak worse? A piece of crappy radiator hose that's absolutely the wrong size and a couple of gear clamps, or something that I actually had all the parts for the whole freaking time and I just didn't bother to make. It's just a nice little all threaded piece that's gonna be the winner, I'll tell you that. Look at a fuel leak. Looks like it's probably back by the fuel filter, or maybe back further from that. I can see right around where it's at. Just give me a minute. I'm gonna fix it, and we'll be able to move on from there. Well, would you look at that? I obviously got to get a new mechanic because the guy that put this fuel filter on here did a pretty crappy job. It's already leaking and it's ran about a quarter cup of fuel through it. So thanks a lot. Oh yeah, I guess it was me that did it. Okay, turn it on. Just turn the key forward.
Okay.
One more click. Okay, turn it off and then click the key forward again.
It's off. Forward one.
Again, forward one. Okay, I got her.
Off.
Yep. Okay, thanks, Emery.
We can go there.
I know what I need to fix. Fortunately, the outlet isn't leaking, but the inlet is. But that's okay. So I replaced the fuel line going into and coming out of that fuel filter. And now that I look at it closely, I don't know what I was thinking. I should have just done that when I was changing the fuel filter, because it's dry rotted and cracked and looks like complete heck. So I'm sure that's why it's leaking. And anyway, got that done. We'll as soon as we can, we'll check all our fluids, make sure everything's good, and take it for a drive. The only downside is I still don't have enough pulleys and whatnot on the front of this thing to run my my water pump. So here's the situation. Fix that fuel leak. Then it started leaking somewhere else. Fix that fuel leak. Started leaking somewhere else. Fix that one. Now it's not leaking anymore. At least not right now. So I'm going to call that good enough for a test drive. What I will do, because I am doing a full restoration of this Jeep, what I will do is I'm going to replace every inch of rubber fuel line on this whole rig, because that's just the right thing to do. Anyway, get a belt on this thing, get some antifreeze in it, and we're ready to roll. Well, you know a guy's getting old when I decided I just can't bear it. I gotta put some exhaust on this thing so that I can drive it around. Now, yes, partially it's because I'm old, but also partially it is because I learned my lesson the hard way that when the exhaust is blaring in your ears, you don't necessarily pick up on all the sounds that you might be wanting to hear that would be signs of things that are about to explode or die or break. So I guess that's probably the main reason I'm going to just put this on somewhat temporary just to quiet it down. It's $100 at my local Canadian Tire, and I got all the parts I need just to put enough of an exhaust to make it reasonable and I can hear what I need to hear. And the best part about grabbing this exhaust stuff is I got this sweet old school thrush sticker. I love stickers. There you go. There's a Jeep exhaust. The original pipe comes down, zigzags across to the passenger side from the driver's side, and it was just hacked off there. Now, fortunately, this is all I needed. I mean, eventually I'll probably put a tailpipe on it, but this realistically, I'm sure this will end up staying on there other than that little turn down at the end. And it's gonna be great. Did I mention that Jeeps are some of the easiest things to work on that you might ever find? There, that sounds a whole hell of a lot more reasonable. So digging around, this is what I need for an idler. This seems to fit in there just about right. And the hole in the back of it is pretty much meant for this bolt that I need. So now all I got to do is find a way to either round those out or maybe I can just cut that off. I really got to mount my vise. This is really driving me nuts. New plan. I've got this 1/8 to just a little bit too big reducing bushing. What I'm going to do, because this is 1/8 NPT, I'm just going to tap that out to accept this 5/16 bolt. And I'll chuck it up in my Fitzy's Fabrications lathe, and we'll make exactly what we need. Should be just about mint. So that actually turned out pretty slick. It's got a bit of a taper in it, but that's okay for what we're doing. Basically, all it is just so that I can drop it in there to spacer around that bolt, put a washer on either side of it, and she'd be slicker than boiled owl shit in there. I think it'll be just about right. Wow, would you look at that? That lines up about as good as it possibly can. I don't know how good you're going to see that on here, but that straight edge is across those two pulleys. Just about right. Now trying to wrestle this belt on there is going to be a friggin' adventure. I gotta say, I've got a belt routing diagram, but it's not the right one. So I guess we'll just have to wing it, see what we can do. So we got a belt on there. We got a high zoot, fully automatic manual fan control. We got antifreeze in the radiator, and believe it or not, it's still in the radiator. So we'll see how that goes. Now I'm going to let this thing start, warm up, run for me a few minutes, check the tranny fluid and see if the coolant gushes all over the floor. And maybe we'll go for a ride. Well, it's charging. That's one good thing. It's not making too much noise, which is another good thing. I'm going to let it warm up a little bit. I'm going to check the vitals here and check the tranny fluid. And we're going to go for a ride. Okay, because I can just end it out and put it over. Okay. Well, the brakes are working. We're just under 100 for temperature-wise.
Wonder what that is.
Oh, I think that's the exhaust. Where am I? The e-brake. We're gonna pretend that didn't happen. We're gonna pretend that didn't happen. What does that sound like? Does that sound like differential? Shows we're in too high, but it also shows four-wheel drive up there. We definitely have some electrical gremlins we're gonna have to work through because our fuel gauge is pinned. Temp gauge seems to be working. Oil pressure gauge appears to be pinned. Second gear. Oh, you know, we might be low on tranny fluid, I bet. That's a big chunk of our problem anyways, guys. But it seems to run nice. I think in an effort to save the powertrain, we're probably going to avoid chopping donuts at this point in our jeeping career. Do we need to have some kind of a lottery pool on what all we wrecked in our test drive? That might be kind of fun.
What think you?
I'm gonna vote on nothing. What does the dog think of this whole situation? What do you think? We'd like to interview the dog at this point. She appears to approve from what I can see. At this point, if we get back to the garage and park back inside there without dying again, I'm going to call this a success. Something else I didn't realize until just now, this little heap's got a factory tachometer in it. That's kind of neat. I had no idea that was there. And it actually appears to work. Did a burnout anyway. A very weak, shitty burnout, but a burnout nonetheless. Well, maybe my burnout wasn't as weak and shitty as I thought. Just the fact is these tires are maybe super quiet when they spin. That's alright. So we started this adventure, actually before that. We started it sometime in late October, early November. But I started recording this version of this this video on November 11th, and here it is, December 27th, and we've finally got this thing running and driving and doing burnouts. We couldn't really find a place, and I wasn't super comfortable cutting any donuts or doing anything like that because there's no ice around right now. It's a really stupid winter here in Saskatchewan. So I guess a burnout is going to have to suffice, but I was pretty happy with the burnout it did. Well, the engine's running beautiful. The transmission is transmitting. I did find out when I came back that it was about a liter low. So between that and the fact that it had been sitting for a while, I'm cautiously optimistic we're going to have a viable, usable transmission there. I got to go back out and check the transfer case. I was just so excited that all that other crap worked that I didn't even think to do that. But you know what? I'm confident it's going to be just fine too. Would you look at that? My dog's still sitting there waiting to go on another ride. Now, we will have a bunch more content that we're going to be making about this Jeep in and amongst all the other things that we're doing. But we're going to be doing the body. I actually found a pair of rear springs to match the front springs, so we'll be putting those on. We're just going to be going through this thing tip to tail. It has to be safetied with the province which I live. So we're going to have to do everything. Well, and I would anyway. We're going to have to do everything 100% to the rule book. Make sure she's perfectly safe for my little girl to take on the odd adventure. And she might even let the old man drive it now and again too. You never know. But I appreciate y'all watching. And if you like what you see, stick around. Maybe there might be some more stuff for you. Thanks for watching.